Thank you, Paul, for being willing to do this interview. Hello, everyone. My name is Bailey Bryan, and this is Dr. Paul Kastic. He's a wonderful chiropractor. You're going to love hearing what he has to say about chiropractic care and also just get to know him as a person. He's been an amazing influence in my life ever since I met you, Dr. Paul, at church. Just really grateful for your positive encouragement and example for how to love people and love the Lord and help people with their health. And you are a facilitator of healing as a chiropractor, and you help people adjust or correct their spine so that the life force, if I'm saying this correctly, flows from the brain through their spinal cord, the central nervous system, and into their organs and muscles.
Correct.
So that God, who is the source of our energy, our life force, can just let our body heal itself and do what it does.
That's correct.
And so
That's correct.
he's like a human X-ray. You don't do X-rays, right?
We don't need to.
No.
We don't need to do X-rays. No. That's all true, Bailey. And flattery will get you everywhere. Thank you so much. But praise the Lord, because he does great things in our lives all the time. Chiropractic is not about back pain. And you made that very, very clear. In fact, chiropractic is about life energy. The way God created our bodies have been created to be self-healing, self-regulating, and self-reproducing. Every 5 minutes you're producing 10 to 15 million new cells. Your body is replenishing itself constantly with new tissues as old tissues wear out. And right now, you don't have a single cell in your body that you had a year ago. You're just completely new continually. In fact, it kind of speaks to this concept that we were meant to be eternal. And, going back into what the Bible says, if you look at, Genesis, we see that God created Adam and Eve and to enjoy him and for him to enjoy them. But they kind of screwed the whole thing up with their sin. And God was very gracious because he put an end to their lives. He didn't allow them to live eternally. And when scientists look at the body and they look at how it recreates itself on a moment-to-moment basis, they realize that, man, why don't we live forever? And the answer is because God is gracious, and because of our sin nature, if we live forever, we would be like demons from hell. Our sin would just drive us. That being said, chiropractic is not about back pain or neck pain. Chiropractic is an energy technique that facilitates what God has designed the body to do. And what God has designed the body to do is to be self-healing and self-regulating and self-adapting. Self-healing in the fact that if you ever cut yourself and didn't bleed to death from that cut, that hole in your arm, your leg, your shoulder, wherever the cut occurred, within a matter of time would close up because your body's self-healing. If you break a bone, regardless of whether you set that bone with a cast, as long as those bone ends are within a ½ inch of each other, they will mend. And so we have this amazing body. If you were to smoke for 50 years, Camel cigarettes, the day you quit smoking is the day your lungs begin to clear themselves out. So we have this really incredible system going on that we call our body that that is able to heal itself. Also, it regulates itself. It adapts continually to environmental changes, both internal and external. And what I mean by that is this. If you walk into a cold room and the temperature's 50 degrees and you're in there for any length of time, your body will begin to shiver. And the reason is this, because your core temperature will begin to slightly drop. And as that occurs, your body understands the fact that if the core temperature drops too much, you're going to die. And so the body will begin to generate additional heat by causing the muscles to move at a very rapid rate. We call that shivering. Or if you walk into a very hot room and you're in there for any length of time, what will happen is as your core temperature begins to rise a little bit, you'll begin to sweat in order to bring the temperature down. And these types of activities that occur, they occur constantly, and there's millions, hundreds of thousands and millions of reactions your body's going through every hour concerning your pH, concerning salinity, concerning the movement of cell tissues, concerning the production of there's just, we are miracles. We are just miracles. So we have these amazing bodies. Now here's how they work. They work based on life. Medicine will tell you that the chemistry of our bodies is what generates the life force, and that is not true. It's our life force that causes the chemistry in our bodies to occur. And what I mean by that is this. In 1989, they started the project to map the human genome. And the gentleman who ran that study, his name was David Baltimore. He had previously won 2 Nobel Peace Prizes for his work in genetics. And so he was a good guy to run this project. It took approximately 13 years to map out the human genome. Now, David Baltimore and all those who worked with him had anticipated finding anywhere from 150 to 180,000 genes, because that's how many proteins are in our body. And the proteins that are in our body are created by the genes that are in our body. Well, it turns out that they only found between 23 and 25,000 genes. And David Baltimore had a very interesting quote, and what he said was this: genes do not explain the complexity of human beings. Genes do not explain our sense of morality. Genes do not explain our emotions. Genes do not explain our ability to think or cognate or have rational thought. And so he said, I'm not going to speculate on what causes that, but I'm just going to say that at this point in time, genes are not the reason why we have what we have in the human being. If you look in the book of Genesis says this, that God created man in his image. Now, God is spirit. And what we see as you read further in the book of Genesis, it says that man was created God created him from the clay, from the dirt of the ground, and then he breathed the breath of life into him. And the Hebrew word for breath means spirit. And it was the spirit that was blown into this clay mold that God made that gave life to it. Well, it hasn't changed. Our life energy, the thing that makes us alive, is not the biochemistry. It is the life force that comes into us the moment the egg and the sperm come together. God puts who you are into that single cell, and who you are as a spiritual being. And it's that spiritual energy that allows that cell to create this at the end of 9 months. So genes don't explain us, but the spirit that God puts into us at the moment of conception does. And that is why life is sacred, because it's not a matter of chemistry, it's a matter of divinity. We are made in the image of the living God. Now, how does that deal with chiropractic? Very simply, it deals in this way. Chiropractic is about unleashing life force. And when I say life force, I'm talking about that immeasurable energy that cannot be quantified or measured, but we know it's in somebody because you're sitting here looking at me, hearing me, seeing me, understanding what I'm saying, nodding your head, and breathing, and blood's pumping. You're alive. There's an energy in you that allows all this to occur, okay? A cadaver has the same exact parts you have, but it's missing something, life energy. And that's what I'm talking about. That life energy literally comes from the spirit that is in you. Your brain is the interface between the natural and the supernatural. And what happens is the spirit gives energy to the brain, supernatural energy to the brain, that the brain will convert to natural life force. That life force will run down the cord onto the nerves and then go to every cell of the body, causing those cells to be self-regulating, self-healing, self-reproducing, allowing your body to be what your body is. And what happens is, because of the importance of the brain and because of the importance of the spinal cord, in the sense of what I just said, that they are the source of life energy of the body, God has encased the brain and the skull, and God has encased the spinal cord inside of a spinal column. And the spinal column is made up of 24 movable bones we call vertebra. They're the only 2 organs that are armor plated. There are no others. And people say, well, there's ribs around the heart. Well, there's really not ribs. The ribs are to allow the cardiovascular system to work. It's the means by which the lungs are able to expand. Without ribs, you cannot breathe. You need a firm foundation to set the ribs and the diaphragm and to allow the lungs to properly work. But are we running out of power?
Nope, we're good.
Okay.
Just checking to make
cool.
sure it's still on.
So the only 2 real armor-plated organs are your brain and your spinal cord. And again, that's because of what they do. They bring life into this body. So the job of the chiropractor is very simple. because of the emotional stresses in our lives, also because of the, sorry about that, also because of the chemical stresses in our lives from the garbage that we eat, the preservatives that are in so much food, the herbicides and pesticides that are used, the fire retardants they put in clothing, and the list goes on, the plastics, the phthalates that are in plastics. Our bodies are constantly under a barrage of artificial chemicals. And because of the stress formed by our body's attempt to deal with the chemicals and deal with the stresses in our lives, these vertebrae that make up our spine shift. And when they shift, they will actually put a physical tension on the cord. That physical tension will reduce the flow of life energy flowing from brain to body, reducing the body's capacity to be self-healing and self-regulating. So the chiropractor's primary role is to find out where those vertebrae have shifted, adjust them, reducing pressure from the cord that was applied to the cord because of the misalignment, thereby allowing a greater flow of life energy into the body. When that happens, all your systems work better. In fact, the definition for health is not a matter of how you feel. The definition for health, it's a matter of how you function. And so the adjustment is to help facilitate a greater degree of life energy getting into the body so the body can be better functioning. It has a higher potential for health because it has a better functionality to it. And that's basically the chiropractic premise. So when we adjust people, we're basically turning life energy on. And it's very interesting. Like one of my patients, her name was, we'll call her Mary. And she came in, and and everybody who shows up in the office always shows up for a neck problem or a back problem. And so Mary comes in with a back problem. Like, Mary, do you have any other problems? Because chiropractic really it's not about your back issue. It's really about more life energy and allowing your body to function at a higher level, which means it has the capacity to start healing itself. And she's like, no, doctor, it's just my low back. Are you sure about it? Yep. So we start adjusting her. And first week of treatment goes, and normally we see people for about 1 month. And we see how the treatments work and how the body responds to it. And usually within a month's time, their bodies are different. They're sleeping better. They're digesting better. Lots of things happen. Anyway, so we start working on Mary, and Mary's focused on her low back, and she doesn't care about the philosophy of the fact that we're turning life force on. So the first week goes by. She goes, doctor, my back really doesn't feel much better. I'm like, I know that, Mary, but the reality is we're really turning life force on. And as your energy increases, those tissues around your spine are going to start healing, and the pain's going to reduce. And the second week comes in, and she's like, doctor, my back still hurts me. I'm like, I understand that, Mary, but we're adjusting to get more life energy. Third week comes in, and she goes, I'm never going to stop coming here again. I'm like, Mary, did your back stop hurting? She goes, no, my back's killing me. I had the same response you did. I started laughing. I'm like, Mary, why in the world would you still want to come here when your back's still hurting you? Because she was just really stuck in this mindset that chiropractic is for back pain. She said this. She goes, I didn't tell you this because I didn't think it would make a difference. But I have been severely constipated for 15 years. And she said, for me to move my bowels, I would move them once a week, and it would require using suppositories, and it would require using stool softeners. And she said it was very painful. Once a week, it was a dreadful time. She said, since I've been coming here, I've been moving my bowels twice a day. I will never stop.
Gosh.
And this is the kind of stuff that happens. People come in, they have neck. Children come in with with ear infections, and you adjust them, and the ear infections start clearing up, and the parents are like, oh, thank you so much, you healed my child's ear infection. I'm like, no, I didn't. Your child has the capacity to heal itself, just there was a block in the healing process by the fact there was not enough life in the body allowing that to occur. And once we adjust, whether it's a child's spine, an infant spine, a teenager spine, an adult spine, a senior citizen spine, what you're doing is you're allowing a greater flow of life energy. And that's all we do. And because, as I said, the body knows what it has to do. As we're sitting here talking right now, you're making, probably 10 to 15 million red blood cells, because 10 to 15 million red blood cells are dying. But you make exactly the amount that your body needs. Not more because you would die, or not less because you would die. I mean, we are amazing at what happens. And so for any of us to say, oh, I know what I got to do, I have no clue. I move a bone, and basically what you said earlier was true. God does the healing. And he does the healing through the fact that he put in you and in me a spiritual energy. A spirit, which is who we really are. These are our earth suits that carry us around. our spirit provides the life energy for the body. And when we're done, we move on. You know, if you know Jesus, you move on to far, far better places than this. So that's the story of chiropractic.
Wow, all that in just 15 minutes. There's so much more.
Yes, you know, you can be a chiropractor.
I've heard some cool stories about chiropractic too.
Mm-hmm.
In trying to prepare for this. D.D. Palmer, was he the first chiropractor?
He was.
So
good.
Early in his days, he had someone who had been in a car accident.
Actually, his name was Harvey Lillard. Harvey Lillard was a janitor, and he was in a cramped area, and he was moving boxes, and he twisted, and he heard a crack in his upper back, in his neck, and he went deaf.
Yeah.
And so D.D. Palmer started to adjust him. You know, he did whatever. I mean, the reality of life is this: God gives man revelation. God gives man understanding. Like Alexander Fleming, who discovered penicillin. How did he discover penicillin? He looked at a petri dish that was full of mold, that basically was contaminated. He was about to throw it away, but he noticed a halo, a clear halo around the mold, and the mold was called penicillin, and realized there was something special about this. I believe God gives men insight. I think all the glory goes to God no matter what. Man can say, I did this, but at the end of the day, whatever intelligence you have, whatever understanding you have, whatever abilities you have, God has gifted you with those things. So glory always goes to the Lord. Anyway, so D.D. Palmer had this genius idea that, well, if you felt the crack in your spine and then you went deaf, there must be something wrong with your spine. So he started this thing called adjusting the spine. That was the first man who was ever adjusted. And within 4 or 5 treatments, Harvey's ears came back. He could hear. So with D.D. Palmer, he got real excited. So D.D. Palmer opened a clinic on Rock Island Road in Davenport, Iowa, and it was a hearing clinic. And within a matter of 6 to 8 months, he had 3,000 people come through his clinic who were deaf, and trying to restore their hearing. But what happened was, very few of them had their hearing restored, but all of them had a change in their health. There were people who had heart issues, liver issues, stomach issues, and these things were clearing up. And that's when D.D. started to realize really the broad spectrum of what chiropractic does. And again, chiropractic is not for any given ailment or symptom. It simply gives energy to the body so the body can do what it was designed to do, which is to heal itself. And I know that you do a lot of cancer research. You know, you deal with cancer. And the one thing we do know about chiropractic is that it does facilitate immune function. And there were studies done in the 90s with patients who were suffering from AIDS. And they had done a few studies in Emory University, the medical school at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. And the studies just simply consisted of this. They had 2 groups of folks who were suffering from AIDS. They were at the same level. And the way they were determining how advanced the disease was based upon their CD4 and their CD8 cell counts. The CD4 and CD8 cells are cells that are produced by the immune system, and basically depending on their number was an indication of how well the immune system was actually functioning. And so what they did was they broke this small group of individuals up into 2 subgroups. They were all at the same level. They all had the same number of CD4, CD8 cells, and they were all taking the same cocktail of drugs. And the only difference was they broke them into 2 groups. One group was receiving chiropractic adjustments, and the other group was receiving what's called a sham adjustment, where someone would just come in and lay their hands on the person and then leave. The chiropractic group was actually receiving chiropractic adjusting. At the end of, it was approximately 3 months of the study, at the end of 3 months, the people who were receiving the chiropractic adjustments had a CD4 and CD8 count that was 49% higher than the group who was not receiving the adjustments. Now, this was done on a really small study group, and so the men who ran, the chiropractors who ran the study, went to Emory and asked, if they could do a broader study, if they could be financed to do a broader study of, say, a population of 200 to maybe 1,000 people. And it was sad because, there's a lot of politics in health, and chiropractic is really kind of frowned upon and just by the medical profession. And, we have 2 different paradigms, and that's understandable. But what happened was when they looked at the results, when the board looked at the results, they just said, well, it's really not that significant. It's like,
50%.
Are you on
It's
drugs?
not.
That's like 50%. Like a 5% change would okay a drug to be
Depends,
put on the
yeah.
market, right? But this was a 50% differential, and but the point of the story is this: that we know from those studies that the immune system is bolstered with chiropractic adjusting. And I'm not saying that every part, go get adjusted, but your immune system, your immune system is going to work better, and you're going to, your cancer is going to be healed by it. But if you are endeavoring to use alternative care, getting adjusted is actually paramount, because the more life your body has, the better it has a chance of properly adapting and responding to that tumor that's in it. And those cells that have been allowed to grow. So that's it.
And so it helps, like, because you could be taking a ton of supplements and juicing and eating all the right things, but if your spine is messed up, then...
Well, here's what happens. I mean, because every single function in the body is determined by your life energy. Absorption of nutrients is determined by the amount of life energy you have. Proper utilization of those nutrients is determined by the life energy that's in your body. So if you want to maximize everything you're doing, whether you're going for alternative care, whether you've completely changed your diet, whether you're on a ketogenic diet, what have you, whether you're on a vegan diet, if you want to optimize the potential for that diet to have the best possible results, you need a body that can absorb those nutrients at the highest possible level, and then be able to properly utilize them by making sure that the proper digestive enzymes are being produced in the blood and in the gut. And so chiropractic just becomes to me, it's a no-brainer. I'm adjusted once a week. And I'm 97 years old, so I'm just kidding. No, but I just, again, chiropractic is just to get more life energy in the body. There's a saying of the older chiropractors, they would say, we move the bone and God does the healing. And that's just the way it worked. And there were remarkable healings going on with people under chiropractic care. But again, it's not the chiropractic that healed them. It's the body that God created to be self-healing that's doing the healing. It's just, we are the crown jewel of God's creation. There's nothing like us in all of creation. I mean, people think animals are similar to humans. They're not. You take any animal out of the wild and feed it the crap we eat, it's dead in 6 months. I mean, we'll live 60 years on the most disgusting diets in the world. That's because
or longer.
I know, or longer, right? And then it's not going to be the greatest quality of life, but still you're going to live because you have such a great adaptability, and God put that into us. I mean, not only has He made us that way, but also we have this amazing mind that we have the opportunity to know God. To know God, to start the process, which is going to take eternity to get to know Him, because He is amazing. And the fact that He created everything by a word, and that what we see in the universe and what we see on this earth and what we see in these bodies, it's just mind-boggling. Excuse me.
I think that's pretty amazing how, like, you've adjusted me many times, and I just remember once I had a cold and you adjusted me, and then it was like I felt so much better. Like my nose started running, like everything was, my immune system was
Working better.
Yeah.
Yes.
And even just when I'm feeling normal, like regular, and you adjust me, I feel it's almost like
you feel better,
brighter.
You get off the exactly.
Like
you get off the table. Like I said, I'm adjusted once a week. I don't have a medical doctor. I haven't been to a medical doctor in probably 30 years.
Wow.
I'm still alive. Woohoo! Anyway, I'm adjusted once a week, and my diet's pretty clean, and I exercise regularly. And those are the 3 parameters for health. I mean, eat well, move well, think well, and keep your nervous system free of impingement, because your nervous system carries the life energy that animates your flesh, that turns clay into living, loving flesh. So.
And what do you hear the most common objections to people coming in for adjustments?
Well, I mean, people think the chiropractor is going to cripple them. They just don't think it works. They think it's, I don't believe in chiropractic. They think it's a faith thing. It's not a faith walk. I mean, it's based on the principle that the nervous system controls the body, and that the nervous system, being protected by the bones by the vertebrae of the spine and the bones of the skull, can be impinged upon, particularly by the vertebrae being misaligned. we know for a fact that when the vertebrae do shift out of position, there is a torque that occurs on the cord, and that torque will change the piezo. There's a tremendous amount of science behind chiropractic. It's not like it's voodoo. It's not voodoo. It's based on pure neurological principle. So
There are peer-reviewed studies people can
yep,
look at to
yep.
find out for themselves.
Sure. Study it, look at it. It's there's tons of information on it. But at the end of the day, it's a paradigm that doesn't line up with Western medicine. Western medicine basically treats symptoms. That's all they do. They never produce health. It's a matter of treating. You have high blood pressure, we will treat your high blood pressure. Not the cause of it, but we're going to give you this drug. You have pain, we're going to give you this drug. You have acid indigestion, we're going to give you this drug. Well, that doesn't fix you. In fact, there's two problems now. First of all, you have the problem that's causing your dysfunction, whether it's GERD, whether it's acid reflux, whether it's diverticular. You have this problem. Now, taking a drug will never fix the problem, but it will abate the symptom.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have two problems. You have the problem, and now you have this chemical that you're putting into your body that is not food and therefore is foreign, and your body's got to figure out how to deal with it. And what you'll see is there's side effects of aspirin has a ton of side effects. And so as a result, you're putting poison in your body. And people say, oh, doc, aren't you being a little harsh? It's not really poison. I'm like, yeah, it's poison. Eat the whole bottle. What'll happen to you? You'll die. Why? Because it's poisonous. Mm. And so by taking one or two, you're just poisoning yourself a little bit, just enough to override your body's normal function and change the symptom pattern. Never fixing the problem, never addressing the causative factor, just addressing the effect with a chemical that is also causing issues with the body. And that's why you look at people who are over 50 or 60 years old, they're on average anywhere from 7 to 12 pharmaceuticals they're on. And half of those pharmaceuticals are to address symptoms, and the other half are to address the side effects of the drugs they're taking to address their symptoms, and they're not healthy at all. They're terrible. I mean, seriously, I am 60 years old. I don't take a medication. I have never taken a medication for anything, and I just really believe that the body is self-healing. You just have to look at your food as fuel. You have to look at your exercise as also fuel for your brain, and thinking correctly is very important. In fact, the two things that have to happen in a person's thought process to really facilitate the most advantageous immune function is to have a heart or a mindset that is thankful and forgiving. Those two things are absolutely paramount. The Bible talks about the fact that bitterness rots the bones, and what we know is people who are miserable, people who are unforgiving, people who have these just are never satisfied with what they have, always looking for the next best thing. They have higher stress levels, which means the immune system becomes downregulated. Stress downregulates immune function. And one of the primary functions of the immune system is to keep cancer from developing in our bodies, or when it does develop, to see it and destroy it. But when you're constantly stressed out because you're either angry at people or you're just simply not happy with what you have, whether it's your house, your car, your spouse, your children, where they're always looking for something better, it could be better. What's going to happen is you're going to have a depressed immune function. And the chance of you developing cancer is much higher than somebody who is thankful and somebody who is forgiving. So.
And chiropractic depends on the health insurance plan, right? Whether it's covered.
Yeah, I mean, basically, some insurances cover it and some don't. But here's the deal, man. I mean, at the end of the day, what are you willing to do to be healthy? When a person, and I say this often to my patients when we talk about dietary changes, and we talk about they need to stop or reduce their carb load dramatically. And they're like, wow, what do I have to do that for? And my question to them is this: what would you be willing to do and pay for if you were in a wheelchair? Oh, I would do anything. Well, you got to think about that now, because the current path you're on and how you're eating, how you're not exercising, how you're not thinking correctly is going to lead you to the poorest quality of life in the future. You need to think of that now, because what you're doing is today is the only opportunity you have to either give yourself a healthy future or a very unhealthy future, a high quality life or a low quality life. And so take that seriously. Take that seriously, understanding that, there are certain things you can do that are going to make a difference. And the thing is this, with chiropractic, I mean, my perspective is if getting adjusted shouldn't be too expensive. I mean, for me, I just make sure that it's affordable for the patient. And it's just something that when folks start to experience it, they really like it. But health insurance is not health insurance. They don't pay for things that really develop health. They pay for things. It's symptomatic insurance. They'll pay. I mean, it's insane that they're so limited in chiropractic. They're so limited in what they pay for acupuncture. They're so limited in what they'll pay for, like somebody like yourself, to give a person an alternative, choice. And alternative care is not 1/10 as expensive as medical care, and yet it's still very, very effective. And it just surprises me that when you look at the studies, you'll see that people who are under chiropractic care see medical doctors 80% less than people who aren't. It's like, and when you look at insurance payments, I mean, 99.99% of everything insurance pays out is for medical treatment. The other 1/1000% or 1/100% is for chiropractic. And it's like, you quibble over whether you're going to pay me to see if you give me 8 visits or 10 visits. But what I'm doing promotes health. What you're paying for, the bulk of what you're paying for, doesn't promote health. It promotes an abatement of symptoms, in which the patient is ultimately going to be on another drug and another drug, then have a surgery and have another drug and another drug. So
it's a lot easier to prevent disease than to treat it like once you have
absolutely, absolutely. And that's where the simplistic, concepts of life come in, where again, eating the right foods. What are the right foods? Vegetables. Your little, food triangle should be, the base of it should be vegetables, not grains. And then drink lots of water. Minimize your sugar levels. Minimize grains. Minimize junk food. Packaged food is horrible for you. It's low in MSG. MSG is an awful neurotoxin. Destroys the brain. Excites the brain. To the point of killing cells. And every packaged food has it. So avoid packaged foods. I always say to my patients, shop the outside of the grocery store. That's where your produce is. That's where your meats are. That's where your fish, your fish. The inside is all your packaged food. That's cancer land. That's gonna help you develop cancer. That's gonna help you become sick. So stay away from that.
And God does the rest.
Amen. He does it all.
Yeah.
He's good.
From the very beginning.
Amen.
So thank you so much, Paul.
You're welcome, my darling. It was my pleasure. I hope folks learned something.
I'm sure they did.
Good.
All right, guys, that's it. Have a good day.
God bless.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.